Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. Written in 1937, this is the classic tale of Lenny and George, two farmhands that are traveling the country during the Great Depression looking for work. Lenny is the big guy who's not too bright and likes to pet rabbits, and George is his friend that tries to keep him out of trouble. Despite not being very bright, Lenny has a big heart, and he's constantly asking his friend George to tell him about the time that they're going to have a farm and live off the fat of the land, and Lenny will be in charge of keeping the rabbits. There are a lot of classic books written in the 20th century that have a wide range of accessibility. I can see someone reading Ulysses and just not getting anything out of it, not understanding what the author's trying to do, and it just being confusing. I can't quite see the same thing with Of Mice and Men. It doesn't have that acquired taste that some of these other classics do. So when you're reading it, you're not so much wondering what the author's trying to do, but you know what the author's going for, and you get to appreciate all of the tactics that he uses in his writing to pull it off in the end. Spoiler alert on this, of course, because it's a short book, and the ending is a huge part of what makes the book what it is. And there's just no way I can talk about it without talking about the ending. It is a tragedy, and the seeds of the tragedy are sown right from the beginning pages. You can tell it in the way that George and Lenny are talking to each other, how they have this big dream of owning their own farm one day. Like you just sense that it's too good to be true, especially because of the foreshadowing that the book does in the flashback to where they came from, and how things went wrong there with what Lenny did. That problem isn't just going to go away. It's going to come back to haunt them again. I love John Steinbeck. He has such an amazing ability to craft regional dialogue and create characters out of that. All the characters in this book are backwoods American Great Depression era farmhands, but even so, the themes are so grand and Shakespearean. It's beautiful what he's able to pull off here. Of course, the tragedy of the book is that Lenny accidentally kills a girl and he runs off and hides, and then George has this time to process, think about what he should do and what would happen to Lenny if he doesn't do something himself. Steinbeck sets this up earlier in the book where one of the characters' dog has to be shot, and there's this dialogue between the owner and some other guy who is volunteering to shoot him, saying he's just going to be miserable, I'm going to put him out of his misery, and the dog owner saying, yeah, but let's not do it right away. It's brilliant foreshadowing for what George is facing, because he knows what he has to do. I thought it was so touching in these last pages of the book where we hear George talk about how he knew that this dream with Lenny, like it wasn't really going to happen, it was just a fantasy in his head. Or how Lenny, when he's off on his own, we get inside Lenny's mind because he's thinking about what George will think and what's going to happen now. He's just like, he knows he's in trouble, but he doesn't have the intelligence or the capacity to put it all together. And then the part where George is talking to Lenny about, petting the rabbits, and he knows that he's going to have to shoot Lenny. And it's so important to George that Lenny knew that George wasn't mad at him. There's just so many little details there, so many powerful lines. It is absolutely brilliant. The book overall is very simple, but it's so amazing to me that he can make powerful points in some of the most moving bits of prose that I've ever read, just through very simple characters, very simple lines. And it's amazing to me what Steinbeck can do here. It's one of my favorite books I've ever read. So I would highly recommend this book to anyone, though a strange little fact, generally when I talk to people about this book, it's higher rated among men than women. I'm not sure why that gender gap would exist exactly, but that's been my observation, so take that for what it's worth. For my own rating's sake, I'm going to give this very easily 5 stars.